exploring the differences and similarities of Hinduism in India and Bali, a spiritual and cultural journey. Welcome to the Hindu and Balinese Hindu Consultation Channel. This channel is created to increase understanding of the beauty of the Vedic teachings, presented in the perspective of spiritual ritual and science. Please watch, subscribe, and share. Did you know that Hinduism in India and Bali, despite having the same roots, developed in unique ways? Let's delve into these fascinating differences and similarities, uncovering the history, culture, and spiritual practices that set the two apart. The journey of Hinduism from India to Bali is a fascinating story of acculturation and adaptation. Let us trace the historical traces that shape the face of Hinduism in these two places. Hinduism in India has its roots in the Indus Valley Civilization. Around 3000 BCE it developed through the Vedic period of 1500 to 500 BCE, undergoing major transformations under the influence of the Upanishads, Buddhism, Jainism, and Bhakti and Tantra philosophies. Changes continued after the Islamic invasion and British colonialism, sparking religious reforms such as the Arya Samaj and Brahmo Samaj movements. The development of Hinduism in India was a long and complex process, influenced by many internal and external factors. This resulted in a rich diversity of schools and practices, reflecting unique historical and cultural dynamics. Hinduism entered the archipelago around the 4th century through trade relations with India, especially through kingdoms such as Kutai, Tarumanagara, and Srivijaya. In the 8th to 14th centuries, the Madang Kingdom, ancient Mataram, and Majapahit strengthened Hindu influence in Java and Bali. After the collapse of Majapahit, many Hindu priests and nobles migrated to Bali, bringing Hindu Javanese teachings, Shiva, Buddha. In Bali, Hinduism blends harmoniously with local beliefs such as animism and ancestor worship, creating a unique belief system. This acculturation process resulted in unique ritual practices and traditions, distinguishing Balinese Hinduism from Hinduism in India. The Malawarman inscription, 4th century, in Kutai, is the earliest evidence of Hindu influence in the archipelago. Prambanan Temple, 9th century, in Java displays characteristics of Shivism. The Nagara Kretagama book 1365 AD by Mpu Prapanka records the influence of Majapahit Hinduism on Bali. The Balinese Lontar tradition records Hindu Javanese teachings, becoming a priceless source of knowledge. These historical evidences provide a clear picture of how Hinduism spread and developed in the archipelago, especially in Bali. They also show how local cultures interacted with Hindu teachings, producing a unique and rich synthesis. Despite its differences, Hinduism in Bali still has its roots in India. The architecture of Balinese temples has similarities with temples in South India. The astrological system uses Panchang Hindu calendar, which still follows the Indian system. Many mantras and Lontar in Bali use Sanskrit. The Indian influence in Balinese Hinduism is evident in everything from architecture to language. However, Bali retains many local elements, such as ancestor worship and the use of kanang sari as a means of offering. Are there any Lontars in Bali that use Sanskrit? There are, but most are not pure Sanskrit. These Lontars usually use a mixture of Sanskrit and Kawi, Old Javanese, or even Old Balinese. The Lontar Bawana Kosa contains Hindu Balinese cosmological teachings and the philosophy of the relationship between humans and the universe, using many Sanskrit terms. The Lontar Raspati Tattva discusses Tattva, the nature of life, with terminology derived from Sanskrit and Old Javanese. The Lontar Sarasamakaya, an ethical and moral text, was translated into Kawi while retaining many Sanskrit terms. The Lontar Siwa Sasana teaches the rules and religious practices of Shaivism in Bali, containing many mantras in Sanskrit. The Lontar Roga Sangara Bhumi, a traditional Balinese medical text, uses Ayurvedic terminology in Sanskrit. These Lontars are evidence of Bali's intellectual and spiritual richness, showing how Hindu teachings were integrated with local wisdom. They are also an important source for understanding Balinese history and culture. During the Hindu Javanese period, Sanskrit was used as the formal language in religious and academic texts, but the everyday language remained Kawi or Old Balinese. Lontar in Bali is more practical and close to people's lives, so it is written in a language that is more understandable. The use of mixed languages in Balinese Lontar reflects the social and cultural dynamics of the time. It also shows an effort to make Hindu teachings more accessible and understandable to the wider community. Where does the tradition of Bantan offerings in Bali originate from? This tradition comes from a combination of three main sources: the Vedic tradition from India, the influence of ancient Hindu Javanese, and local Nusantara traditions, animism and dynamism. In the Vedic teachings, the concept of yajna, sacred sacrifice, is known as a form of offering to the gods. Yajna in the form of sacred fire, Agnihotra, Homa and Yajna, is still carried out in India, but in Bali it has developed into an offering in the form of Bantan. The concept of Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam from the Bhagavad Gita 9.26 shows that God accepts offerings in the form of leaves, flowers, fruits, and water. The concept of yajna is at the heart of the Hindu offering tradition, both in India and Bali. It shows that offering is a way to communicate with God and seek His blessings. Before Bali, offering rituals had developed in Java in the form of offerings. The ancient Mataram and Majapahit kingdoms had offering traditions similar to today's Balinese Bantan. Reliefs and temples, such as Prambanan and Borobudur, show offering rituals that resemble Balinese Bantan. The ancient Hindu Javanese influence in the Balinese Bantan tradition shows the cultural and spiritual continuity between Java and Bali. It also shows how the tradition of offerings has developed and adapted over time. Before Hinduism came, the Nusantara people already had the habit of giving offerings to ancestral spirits and natural forces. When Hinduism came, this system was absorbed and adapted to the concept of yajna in Hinduism. The fusion of local Nusantara traditions with Hindu teachings produces a unique and rich Bantan tradition. This shows how Hinduism interacts with local culture, creating a harmonious synthesis. Bantan in Bali is not just an offering, but a real form of yajna that adapts to local culture. It is a unique expression of Hindu beliefs combined with local wisdom. Certain trees are revered in Hindu traditions, both in India and in Bali. People, banyan, bilva, neem, and tulsi trees are often given cloth or especially revered in India. In Bali, the Beringan, Pule, Kapu, and Majigao trees are also revered. The peepal tree is considered to be the abode of Lord Vishnu. In the Bhagavad Gita 10.26, Krishna states that among trees he is Ashvatha, peepal. This tree is often draped with yellow or red thread and cloth as a sign of respect. Women who want to have children usually tie threads around the peepal tree. The peepal tree is a symbol of purity and life in the Hindu tradition. Respect for this tree shows respect for nature and belief in the spiritual power within it. The banyan tree symbolizes eternity and is often associated with Lord Shiva and goddess Parvati. In some temples, its trunk is decorated with cloth as a symbol of purity. The banyan tree is a symbol of strength and resilience. Respect for this tree indicates the hope for a long and prosperous life. Trees considered sacred are often considered to be the abode of a god or Holy Spirit. The offering of cloth shows respect for the spiritual entity that resides there. Women praying for a child often tie cloth or thread around a peepal or banyan tree. In certain festivals, trees are draped with cloth as part of the worship. The tradition of giving cloth to trees may have originated from a combination of animist beliefs and Hindu teachings. In the Rig Veda, trees and nature are considered to have divine consciousness. In Bali, palang cloth is often used to show the concept of balance, rwa baneta, while in India more red, yellow, or sacred thread cloth is used. In India, the purpose is petition, worship of gods, and purification. In Bali, the purpose is to symbolize the balance of rwa baneta and the abode of the Holy Spirit. Respect for nature is an important part of Hinduism, both in India and in Bali. This tradition shows an awareness of the interconnectedness of humans and nature and the importance of maintaining the balance of the ecosystem. Although the forms are different, the essence of Bantan in Bali and offerings in Hindu India have the same basis, namely the concept of yajna or sacred offering to God. In Bhagavad Gita 9.26, Krishna says that whoever with devotion offers me a leaf, flower, fruit, or water, I will accept it. Bantan in Bali aims as yajna for the balance of nature and spirituality, using flowers, leaves, fruits, water, rice, incense, and fire. Indian Hindu offerings aim as puja to ask for blessings and prosperity, using flowers, leaves, tulsi, bilva, fruits, water, incense, and fire in homa. Bantan uses mantras in Kawi Sanskrit and has a philosophy of balancing Rwa Bhaneda duality. Indian Hindu offerings use mantras in Sanskrit and have a philosophy as a form of devotion to God, bhakti yoga. In Bali, the aesthetic element is more prominent with the presence of kanang sari and jibogan, which are beautifully arranged. In India, the offerings are simpler, often only in the form of small plates filled with flowers, fruit, and water. In Bali, the elements of animism and Nusantara dynamism influence the form of Bantan. In India, the concept of home, sacred fire, is more prominent than the offerings. Bantan in Bali is largely inherited from Hindu Javanese who had adopted local elements before migrating to Bali. In India, the form of the ritual maintains the classical Vedic pattern. Bantan in Bali is an evolution of Indian Hindu offerings which have been adapted to the culture of the archipelago. This is an example of how religion can interact with local culture, creating unique and relevant expressions. In India, some types of leaves that are often used in Hindu offerings, puja, are tulsi, bilva, peepal, mango, and durba leaves. Like in Bali, which uses certain leaves in Bantan, in India there are also types of leaves that have special spiritual meanings in Hindu rituals. The use of leaves in offerings shows respect for nature and a belief in the spiritual power within it. Each type of leaf has a different meaning and symbolism, reflecting the diversity of beliefs and practices in Hinduism. The worship of Bhairava shows a belief in the importance of destructive energy in maintaining the balance of the universe. This also shows the influence of Tantrism in the Hindu tradition. Does the worship of the fierce aspect of Shiva, such as Bhairava, also have traces in Bali? There are some indications, although with different names and symbolism. In Bali, the concept of Shiva's fierce energy persists in several forms: Rudra, Batara Kala, and Rangda. Several statues and reliefs in old temples in Bali show characteristics similar to Bhairava. The Garebong ritual in Kesaman shows elements of trance and worship of fierce energy. Several ancient traditions in Bali recognize the teachings of Bhairava Tantra. Although the name Bhairava is not often mentioned in Balinese Hinduism, the concept persists in other forms, such as in the worship of Rudra, Batara Kala, and certain rituals involving fierce energy. Hinduism in India and Bali, while different in practice and cultural expression, has the same roots in the Vedas. These differences arise from historical, cultural, and local adaptation factors. Hinduism in Bali is more based on Shaivism with strong elements of animism and ancestor worship, while Hinduism in India is more diverse in its philosophical schools. By continuing to learn and appreciate differences, we can deepen our understanding of Hinduism and strengthen the bonds of brotherhood between religious communities. Let us make differences a source of inspiration and strength to build a better world. In its history, Hindu rituals are very adaptive to change because the main focus of the ritual is harmony between nature and its inhabitants. Is it better to have an Agnihotra or Bantan ritual? Both must be done for different purposes. Agnihotra is more oriented towards purifying the energy of the universe, while Bantan is more directed towards the welfare of nature and humans. The most important thing that needs to be understood together is that the purpose of Agnihotra is the purification of energy, but the use of large amounts of wood in Agnihotra has the potential to damage nature, as does the use of flowers, janur leaves, and too much fruit in offerings, which has the potential to exploit nature on a large scale. Offerings or yajna are not meant as food offerings to Brahman, but a system taught in the Vedas to achieve Jagathita by building harmony in all directions, both with the gods, bhutas, humans, and the environment. This is the main focus. The procedures are adjusted to local traditions and the support of nature. May all beings be happy. Om Namah Shivaya.